Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of VGC Reflections. So excited to be back with all of you, and especially with Markus, who actually is just coming off an incredible run at the Turin special event, which took place this past weekend. So we've got a lot to cover this episode. The first two Pokemon Champions majors here in North America, as well as Europe. We'll be talking about the Japanese National Championships, which just concluded, and talk about our predictions for NAIC and a wrap up of Regulation MA, as it's basically the last week of the format. So, Markus, it's been a while. How are we doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. I just got home today. Actually, it's Monday after Turin, the day of recording. So I just got home earlier today. I took an overnight night bus. So those are always fun. But I got some good sleep on it. But still, it's like always like a little bit tiring, of course, participating in a 2-day event, and then the travel as well. But yeah, other than that, I feel really good. And yeah, how about you? We were just chatting about it. There's also some like big event going on in New York right now, even if it's not Pokemon related.
Yeah, the energy is electric right now. I feel like it's, kind of like spring, summertime. The weather's amazing. And the New York Knicks are in the NBA Finals. It has been many, many, many years since they last played in it. And it's funny, I didn't watch sports too much growing up, mainly because I think, my parents weren't like big into sports, being like immigrants and not really following really, many sports. But I got into basketball specifically when Jeremy Lin was on the Knicks, and there was this whole thing called insanity when Jeremy Lin, he was like about to be cut from the team, and all of a sudden it's like basically his last opportunity to play a game, and like the star player on the Knicks, Carmelo Anthony's like injured, and so the coach is like, yeah, we'll like throw Jeremy Lin some playing time, like let's say whatever, like we there's nothing else we can really do, and he like goes on one of the most like generational like 7-game streaks like ever, and people are like, oh my goodness, like this guy's actually legit, he's incredible. And like I didn't know who he was, mainly because there are very few like Asian American people in sports, let alone like the NBA specifically, and so after that run, that was like one of the few times where I felt like New York had world peace. It was that time right
Mm.
now. And then when Pokemon Go came out in 2016, it felt like everyone was playing and everyone was like on the same page with it. So honestly, the like feeling is electric right now. It's super exciting. I'm gonna watch the game with my friends tonight as well, and it's awesome. But yeah, they're up 2-0 right now. It's a 7-game series, and so I think people are feeling really, really good about their chances of winning. And coming into the season, I think people were like, oh, they'll probably make it to the finals, but they're just going to get demolished by whoever comes from the other conference. And it was going to probably be the Spurs or the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are the defending champions. But the fact like they're up 2-0 right now, it's like there's so much energy, and it's like everyone's so excited for them. So yeah, it's a really, really exciting time to be in New York right now.
Yeah, well, best of luck. It's like yeah, it's like always cool to have like the kind of the at the biggest scale, of course, if your like hometown team is part of it, and then the fact that finals also goes over like several days means that like there's a lot of like build up. Um, Whereas like a lot of the sports that I like to follow, like in football or soccer, for example, it's always just like one game. It's just 90 minutes and then it's all
Yep.
over. But then of course in basketball you have like these long series or for like finals and then also like playoffs. But also you have more games like in a shorter span of time because they don't need as much time regenerating in between. So yeah, I was always thinking, if I like had to get into another sport, it probably would be basketball, but I'm not really into it. But yeah, even I like heard about the fact that it's like a special run for the Knicks.
Exactly. Yeah. So fingers crossed, hopefully I didn't jinx it by talking about it here on the cast, but it is, it's truly like such a special time to be here. And I'm just like grateful that the city can experience it together. But of course, I've got a lot of Pokemon action to talk about. Markus and I actually both were at the first major of Pokemon Champions, myself in Indianapolis and Markus in over in Turin. And so we'll start out by talking about Indianapolis, which by the time of recording basically was just over a week ago. And then we'll talk about Markus's experience over in Turin. But yeah, it was really chaotic. It was really interesting. I ended up competing. I had gotten a spot to compete like a few months beforehand. And so I was always going to plan on going, but then the date kind of just like got closer and closer and closer. Next thing I knew, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the week of the tournament. I still don't really know what team I want to use. And, as a Sayboy or Chowdon lover, I was like, well, I'm not, trying to qualify for Worlds this year. I've only competed in like 2 tournaments. And so you know, what can I use that I think can give me a good chance of doing well? And I really wanted to use Sableye or Chaladon, but it honestly just didn't feel that good into the metagame because all these like fairy types started popping up, like Sylveon and Whimsicott. So I was like going between a couple of ideas. I wanted to use Galarian Slowking and Blastoise at one point, and then I was pairing Galarian Slowking with our Chaladon. But then in the end, it was like 2 days before the tournament, and I was trying out Sajum Park's like, you know, double setup team with Mega Delphox as well as Mega Floette. And I love the team. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm just going to lock it in. I'm going to roll up to the event with it. Convinced Aaron, Trailer, and my brother to use it as well. And ultimately, like, the event didn't go super well for any of us, but I actually don't think that was because, like, the team was bad. I think, like, we just didn't have enough time to, like, prepare really solid game plans. And yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't have any, like, high expectations, but I think at this point, it's like if I don't make day 2 minimum at a tournament, like it always feels bad no matter what the level of preparation is. And so, yeah, I did not do very well at the event. Like I went 4-4 overall. And I like started 3-1. And I felt like it's like I could say, yeah, I got unlucky a little bit in all of my losses, but none of the losses were purely due to luck, right? And I was like, well, if that's the case, then that's kind of on me. I think like all the losses were like 3-game sets where like it was totally winnable, except for one, which was like to a complete crazy team, which I'll talk about it just a little bit. But yeah, I was like the level of play is super, super high. And it's like, you know, Marcus, I'm curious on your thoughts about this. I always felt like preparing for a Pokemon tournament kind of is like preparing for an exam at school. And I was, my, you know, method of preparing for exams at school was always like, oh, I like can study last second and I'll like still do okay. And I think when Scarlet and Violet first started, I also was like, you know what? I'm like rolling up to these tournaments and I'm only putting in like 2 or 3 days of prep, but I can like rely on my past experience and still like minimum make it to day 2 and hopefully make like a, you know, decent run. But now I feel like that method is catching up to me a little bit where it's like a little bit more unreliable, especially with how high the skill level is of the game. So I'll pause there first and just see what your reactions are.
Okay, well, so I actually did talk to some of my friends over the weekend in Italy about exactly that. Because we were kind of like looking back at the season as now, yeah, like the season is pretty much over, only NAIC left next weekend, and then it's already Worlds again. And I think my take is that personally, I prefer to see the whole season or like my whole, I guess, career as a Pokemon player more as like a continuous process rather than a string of singular events. Because whenever I get in the mind of like, oh, I need to like prepare for one like tournament specifically, and I only have like X amount of time left, then it's like, okay, you shove in a lot of like knowledge about a new team or like a strategy, and you try to like memorize everything, and then you play the tournament. And no matter how well you do, then afterwards you might like have a tendency, or like personally, I feel like, oh, then I like forget some of the stuff, or I'm like, oh, I put in like so much effort. Now I want to take like a break from playing, and then I don't maybe take the kind of like the learnings from it, or I don't use it as much as like a growth opportunity. So I try to like view events as like a check. Like I always want to be like on the ball. I always want to like keep going, and I want to prepare even when there's no tournament coming up, so that whenever a tournament is coming up, because like usually they're not at the right times. Like sometimes I would have a team and I would be like, oh, I wish there was like a tournament coming up. And then this is when I like try to go to locals, when I would be like, okay, like is there any local like the upcoming weekend, because I have a team that I feel good about, rather than like the reverse where it's like, oh, I have a tournament coming up, now I need to find a team and then put pressure on myself. But of course it's like tough when time's limited, and like as you were saying, you're only playing in like a limited amount of tournaments. So then you might be like a little bit out of the general like competition mode, unlike someone like me who's like, well, at some point I started like, oh, I want to play at Worlds this year, so I need to continuously play. Like I can't afford to just do like one tournament and then like be on break again and then focus on the next one, because yeah, that method, like just from my experience, it doesn't really work so well for me. And to me also sometimes makes events more stressful when they should be more fun.
100%. Yeah. No, I think that's a really interesting discussion point, actually, because I think about seasons where I did compete from beginning to end. And I was like, look, I'm trying to qualify for Worlds. I want to do well in the entire season. And like, it's been a while since I've, you know, played an entire season from beginning to end. But I remember like 2015, like that season, I was like grinding so much. And I like basically went to every like New York local the level of competition was super high. I was playing in all the online tournaments as well. So to your point, it was like, and back then it was like we played like one format, right? It's like you had the post Worlds format, which was the previous year, but then you basically would play the entire format for the season. And so it felt like I was like leveling up with each experience, even if like sometimes maybe I would like miss Top Cut at a regionals, for example. But it's like, okay, what did I learn from it? What did I learn from like the team composition that I used? Right now, like the competitive Pokemon circuit's interesting because like things evolve and change so quickly. I also think metagames, we talked about this previously, are evolving so much more rapidly than before. And so that does, go into like team choice, for example. But yeah, I think to your point, it's interesting because as someone who has not been competing very, actively this season, sometimes it's like I like turn a switch on rather than, and like, I think one would think, oh, if you're like doing all this content for YouTube, like, isn't that, basically like, you're doing this as a job, like you would think it would carry over. But I actually think the skill set is like quite different. It's like what I do from YouTube is how do I learn a team really quickly for best of one play and like showcase the different strategies with it. But I actually think like one of my learnings from not doing super well in Indy was that like I had like no reps on best of 3 against really good players in this format. And I actually think Regulation MA and probably MB as well was like such an interesting best of 3 format because so many top teams have 2 mega evolutions rather than 1. And so selecting the right 4 is, and like adapting between games is actually such a crucial part of success in the format. And I often find myself like maybe not bringing the right like mega evolution to the battle because my opponent was like one step ahead of me and like picking their mega evolution. And then I would like immediately start the game from behind. And like that doesn't really feel great, especially if you're going up against someone who's like super high caliber, for example. And so I think, yeah, it's interesting because when we had actually previously played mega formats, like it didn't feel like it indexed as much on like double mega evolution. Whereas now sometimes there's this like rock, paper, scissors where it's like my 1 mega beats your 1 mega, but then your other mega beats that mega. So then I might have to pick my other mega. And so that was something that at least like in my experience, having used like Mega Delphox and Floette, it was like very clear that there would be a right one once the game started and you saw your opponent's Pokemon, but it was like really hard to cover for both in team preview. I actually think that's part of the reason why like Arcel was able to win the tournament, right? Like, yes, he had Mega Charizard and Calm Mind Mega Floette, but like, I actually think like it's really difficult to pick a core of 4 Pokemon like and adequately beat both of those modes.
Oh yeah, like absolutely. It's also something that I think anyone who was around like 2018, 2015, some of the previous mega formats, like back then, as you were saying, it was mainly like 1 mega that you would try to like center your team around, and you would try and build it in a way that you could always bring your mega and have like your non-mega Pokemon be counters to the common counters to your mega. So if you were using like a Charizard, then you would often look at Pokemon like, I don't know, Landorus, Therian, or Kartana in 2018 that would do really, really well against Tyranitar because that was like one of the main counters. And or like Cresselia that would do well against Landorus and Garchomp. Like those would be very, very common Pokemon to pair Charizard with. Whereas now, like and maybe without going into like too much of a team report, but maybe you can like explain how Sejon's team, the one that you ended up using, works a little bit. But now it feels more about, okay, like you want to have kind of like 2 options, and in the case of the team that you used in Sejon's team, those 2 options, I think the 2 modes that the team has, they're like pretty similar in how they play, and then only the mega is different. But then Arcel, the team that won Indy, has like 2 modes that are like way different, and you need like way different tools in approaching them, and it's like really, really hard to have like one like set of Pokemon, like a 4 that can do well against like a setup Floette mode and also against like a Venusaur Charizard mode at the same time.
Exactly. Yeah. I'll talk a little bit first about like the team that I ended up using, which, as we talked about, was like the team Sage Park had built. And the reason why I thought it would be a good pick was because, one, it's like Sejon, right? Like he put together an incredible composition. He like went 8-1 with it at Korea Nationals, and I was like watching him play, and I was like, well, he got knocked out in top 4, but both of the games actually felt super winnable. So I was like, clearly the team has a lot of strength to it. And it's very much like a protect the king style composition, right? Where you have Mega Delphox, you have Mega Floette, and it reminded me a lot of playing with our Chaladon, because when I used our Chaladon with Sableye in the beginning of the format, it was like our Chaladon's going to be the primary damage dealer and the carry. So the idea behind the team is that you have multiple supportive options to enable your Mega Evolutions. Floette's going to be a little bit bulkier and has more sustain with Draining Kiss, but Delphox, of course, can deal large amounts of damage. The thing about using a composition like this is it's so delicate because it means that all of your damage is basically going to come from your Mega Evolution. If you lose your Mega Evolution, you'll probably just lose the game a lot of the times, unless you've like gotten, 2.5 to 3 knockouts, right? And so I do think part about the thing about using a composition like this is really having experience, like knowing your damage calc specifically. Like, one of my losses was to an opposing Mega Floette, and like I didn't know how much like +5 Psychic from Delphox would do against +2 Special Defense Mega Floette. And so this is my last set. I was already like out of top, day 2 contention, but basically I thought I would get the knockout and like I think Floette was around like 70-ish%, and so I could
70 is what I would have guessed.
yeah,
Put
exactly.
me on the spot.
And so Psychic, so because I could have had the option of Heat Wave, right? Like the flow was actually at like 45%, but I was like, oh, Sinister is probably going to switch in here to try to heal. But I was like, oh, but I think I'm going to get the knockout. If I get the knockout, I win on the turn. So I like click Psychic instead of Heat Wave. And then the flow at hung on with, I think it was like 1 or 2% exactly. And then I was like, oh, actually, if I just click Heat Wave there, I probably would have ended up winning because I would have knocked out Sinistra, denied more healing, and then the Floette's still like 1 attack away from getting knocked out. I don't know if I got like unfavorable damage rolls throughout the tournament because I also had a situation where it's like Delphox Incineroar against a Mega Glamora under Light Screen and Psychic plus the Darkest Lariat, or sorry, the Throat Chop from Incineroar double up with Light Screen up against Glamora. The Glamora hung on with also like 1 or 2%. So there was a lot of games I lost where I was like, oh, I was so close on that damage. And it's like, because you're, really going all in on your carry a lot of the times. If you don't get that knockout and they knock you out in return, it's like a complete disaster. But I don't know. That's something like I think come from experience. And I'm also not sure I like played the modes 100% correctly. It's like if I'm in a position where I like need to kind of get that knockout, was there anything I could have done to like further, maximize it? Like, for example, that game that I'm talking about where I was at +5, I like ate up a parting shot and I was like, oh, maybe I could have like got into +6 instead of attacking 1 turn previously. Then that would have been enough to like sequence the knockout, for example. But it was a really interesting team composition. I think because me, Aaron, and Brendan all like didn't do super well with it, we were all like, is it a team thing? Is it like we didn't have enough experience with it? But then I was watching Turin this last weekend, and it's like Arash Omadi got, top 4 and almost won the entire tournament with it. And then the team in the finals like had a little bit more offense on Louis' team, but still had a lot of the same core of like Delphox Floette. So then I felt validated in the sense that I was like, I do think this was a really strong call and a strong team, but it's like getting the reps in, especially like knowing your damage calcs, like niche damage calcs, like +4, +5, +6 versus, random things can be super crucial. And I think I was lacking a little bit of experience in like adjustments in particular, because I felt like, a lot of times like was not bringing necessarily the right mega against my opponents. But it was a really fun team to pilot. I think it was just super delicate because it's like, at any given point, you're like, oh, I could take a risk with my Mega Evolution, but if I get the prediction wrong, I might just lose on the spot. And that's very different from how I'd say most other teams in the format play.
Yeah, because the way the team plays, like usually you would bring your Mega and then 3 support Pokemon, and then also this is something that when like watching Arash, now that you mentioned him, play in Turin, like it's like some games would have been like night and day difference if like is the final support Pokemon is going to be like Incineroar or Maushold in the back, right? And you have to be able to kind of foresee like where is the game going to go by the point where you would send out your 4th Pokemon, because like so I was also in Turin. I was using a Calm Mind Floette team, and very very often I would actually win with just like 3 Pokemon, like just Incineroar, Floette, and Sinistra. Because if you get the opportunity to set up, then Floette is just like strong enough to take home the game without even needing the 4th Pokemon. And so understanding and like being able to like long-term plan, oh, this is probably a matchup where I need like 1 more fake out in the end game, and then that will allow me to win. Or I need like 1 more follow me, and that will allow me to win. Like that's like really, really hard to kind of see from a distance. And like that was in the few games that I tried with the team, like that was also one of the things that I thought was like most difficult, like deciding, like first step, of course, okay, decide which of the 2 megas you want, like the Calm Mind Floette or the Nasty Plot Delphox. But then also, okay, what's the most reliable way for me to set up? Because you need to set up every game with this team. Like you cannot like go for trades because you don't have enough damage for that. And then if you found an opportunity to set up, like what's the support cast that you need for the mid and end game to like secure the win. So really, really interesting team that looks like pretty, I would say, straightforward when you like first look at it, but then like some of the plays also that Arash needed to make, some of the plays that like from your from what you guys were sharing, during the tournament. Like it seems like a team where it's like, yeah, it can like just like steamroll, and it can go super well if the opponent doesn't really know how to treat it, or you get the call right and bring the like right setup. But if you make like one tiny mistake or like one damage roll you're not aware of, then it's also super punishing because the game is instantly over if you lose your carry.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And yeah, so it's like I went into this tournament really with like no expectations. I was basically like, oh, it's like a lot of my friends are going. It'll be nice to hang out. It's like pretty close to home. But it's never fun to not do well, no
Mm.
matter what the level of preparation is, right? And I, it's interesting because I think I played, one other regionals this season, and that was like in Mexico in the beginning of the year. And that one I remember it's like kind of had like a last second decision. I was like, oh, I kind of want to go because I have this team that I really like. And it was interesting because I also didn't put in a ton of prep time with that, but I actually played 5 best of 3s against Joe UX9, right? One of the best players in North America. And I feel like I downloaded so much from those 5 best of 3s. Because initially I was like trying to play on Showdown Ladder, but I was like, well, my rating is just not high enough. And I like don't have the time to grind like 20 best of 3 sets just to get to a point where you're like playing like higher quality opponents. But then Joe and I ran some sets, and like I like had so many good learnings from it that I was like, even just from those 5 sets alone, I feel like I have a good sense of how to approach different matchups. And like one of them was against Hard Trick Room, and Joe was like, dude, you need to be prepped for Hard Trick Room. Like you got to make sure you know your Hard Trick Room lines. And then I did play Hard Trick Room in the tournament, and it was a super close set, but I ended up winning kind of like from my learnings from that set. And then I was thinking about like 2024 when I was playing in like locals and stuff, and I was like learning like lines and things just from like playing some best of 3s with that. So I think it goes to show like the value of best of 3 experience, because right now these days I'm like primarily a best of 1 like closed team sheet player, mainly for like making YouTube videos. But that's like a very different skill set that it is from best of 3, and obviously carries over, right? Like a lot of the game's best players are just amazing at both. But I think with this format in particular, like the dual mega interaction that we were talking about, like that was something that I didn't have a ton of experience with, especially because like you talk about in previous formats that we had played in, like dual mega was not actually as prevalent either. So I do think that's one of the cool things about Pokemon, where it's like you can always draw from your past experience, but every format does feel uniquely different in its own way. And that's kind of how MA has shook up. But I mean, yeah, looking at the results of indie regionals, like I'm curious, Markus, if you were like expecting these top teams. Obviously, Wolf and his Steelix Mega Tyranitar team is the one that garnered a lot of attention, and as well as Arsenal, playing so incredibly well and defeating him in the finals. But I'm curious, especially with you having played in Turin the following weekend, like were you looking at the teams and the results, or were you saying, oh, I think like this is not actually how I expected the metagame to shake up?
Yeah, so when we were talking like about my run into champions in best of 1, I was mainly using a Calm Mind Floette team, which built by the Japanese player Ryoma, which was also the basis for the team that Arsa ended up using. And I was also talking to Ink, who was I think the like main builder of the team, or who was like playing a lot of games online with it. And so I had seen the idea of like putting in the Focus Sash Venusaur on that team over Aegislash. And while I didn't think it was like my kind of type of like change, I also agreed that the Aegislash set is the one slot that you might want to switch up into something that is maybe a little bit more versatile. And yeah, Venusaur is like really, really great at that because it like powers up the Charizard mode. And with fast sleep, it's just like really, really difficult to react to it. And there's no safety goggles. A lot of the format doesn't use Lumberry anymore. So you're kind of like banking on taking the sleep. Maybe you're hoping for a miss, and then you're hoping to wake up soon. But yeah, the team that I ran in Turin, like I knew this going in, but was pretty weak against the Venusaur sleep powder because I didn't have a reliable way of denying it. And then I faced it in my first 3 rounds were Venusaur and Charizard. And the first one I lost against because they were like they played it really well. They hit the sleep powders. I got the sleeps, and I was like, well, yeah, that's just how it goes. And then it's like, well, but fortunately for me, like, yeah, Venusaur isn't like that common, is it? And then next round it's Venusaur again. I barely win, and I'm like, okay, well, but now like I finally I'm like over the hurdle or whatever. And then third round is like another Venusaur, and I was like, oh wow. But and funnily enough, and then we'll go back to talking about Indy. But funnily enough, for my friends and I for this tournament, so I don't know if they have this as well in the US, but at events in EU, they would have like these like fun Pokemon themed activities to do, and one of them is like a drawing thing where you get like silhouettes printed out on a piece of paper, and then you can like color them. And so we would sit down in between rounds and color this like a piece of paper which had Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, and Venusaur on it. And every round I came back and I was like, like you won't you can't guess what I just played against. It was Venusaur every round. So that was quite funny, and we finished a magnificent drawing of the three. Yeah, like going back to the results, I thought that while I think every team in top 4 at least like had some like something unique about it. Like the Venusaur, maybe like it was known in, I don't know, like at like a super high level. If you played on ranked, there's a chance that you queued into it at some point. But then of course the Mega Steelix was a big story of the tournament from Wolf. Then we had the Palafin and Talonflame coming out from Nails. And then Michael with the also unique Tyranitar and Frostless team composition. So like all like of the teams in top 4 like brought something new, and I thought that was exciting because I think a lot of the talk about Champions MA, the format was that, it's gonna be the same Pokemon. There's gonna be like Basculegion, King Gambit, and Sneasler on every single team, and then it was just like the complete opposite of that, just showcasing that in fact the format was like, it has room for creativity. It has like room for like unique Pokemon choices. It has room for unique move sets. And I thought like I was like really happy and really relieved because like I guess in my mind, and we will talk about this in a second, like in terms of like just creativity, I was expecting, okay, number 1 creativity is probably going to be Japan Nets. Then number 2 is got to be Indy, and then number 3 is maybe the EU event, just because I don't know, in EU we have like a tendency, or like the strongest players have a tendency to go with more trusted teams, let's say like that. And so seeing that Indy already gave us some really cool like new stuff, I was like, like now I'm so excited to see like what's gonna come out of Japan Nationals, which we'll talk about this in a second, but spoiler alert, was not the most creative and most diverse top 8. But now, after all these 3 tournaments are done, like I'm still really looking forward to what's happening at NAIC, because then we'll have the clash of like some of the best players, of course, from all over the world. I know that also Zine is going, for example, Shoma, Vieira is going, so also some Japanese representation at NAIC, and then of course a lot of the best players from Europe are also going to make the trip over there. And so I thought Indy was a great way to kick off Champions. Of course, we have to briefly talk about the round 4. Because what was it like for you? Like I heard stories of players like playing one game in their best of 3, then going to like a sports bar, watching like the Champions League finals, and then like coming back and then playing the game 2. Like what was it like for you?
Yeah, it was unheard of. I think it did kill a lot of momentum for me, but I'm like not gonna blame that as a reason for not doing well. Like, but at the end of the day, like I was playing, and it took forever to connect. Like me and my opponent, like it felt like it was like 20 minutes before we could even get into a game, whereas like other people had started the game. And so we actually end up playing one game exactly. And then we just like can't manage to connect afterwards. And so we try for another 20 minutes and nothing happens. We call a judge over, and the judges are obviously super overwhelmed at this point, right? And so it's hard to even flag anyone down. And then they were like, we're making the call that we're like going to pause the tournament for an hour. If you've played your games already, great. If you are mid-set, you're going to leave and you're going to come back and finish your set. And some people just like hadn't even gotten their set started. And I was like, well, that's crazy, because I've never had a VGC experience where like you play one game, but then you're able to leave, right? And so
It's almost like you're playing like the basketball like finals, and you have like a couple days between each game.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because obviously like that does give the players the opportunity to, think about their game plans or look things up. And so I was like, in the spirit of competition, I'm not going to think about, I like like I'm just gonna leave things as is. I'm just gonna go hang out with my friends, like not talk about the games.
Did you one question? Did you get to keep your opponent's team sheet?
I think we gave it back to each other, but I guess you
Okay.
probably could have. I'm
Yeah.
sure some people probably just even forgot to.
Yeah.
It's funny because I actually like as soon as game one ended, I knew exactly what my game two and potential game three game plan would be. Just because like I won game one, but I felt like I
Mm.
actually shouldn't have, and so I was like, okay, here are like the mistakes I made. Like here are the things that I want to approach it differently in the matchup. But it was pretty wild. And then I mean, like by the time we started playing, I think they streamed 3 different round 4 games like on stream. Like the round itself took maybe 3 hours to complete. So it was just a huge like internet issue, I think, within the venue where like people just could not connect. And the tournament was actually running really smoothly before that and after that. So fortunately, it was just like this one-time thing. But in the
Yeah.
moment, I was like, oh man, like is this event even gonna happen at this point? Like, what is going on? And like,
Yeah.
I mean, it also like kills momentum a little bit, especially because like in my set, I was like, okay, I like won game one, but I kind of like stole the game in the sense that like I think my opponent probably should win the majority of the time, but I like found this path to victory where like they maybe made a mistake and I capitalized off of it. So I was ready to like use that momentum, right? Because it's like I think sometimes an experience like that, like the opponent probably is like a little bit flustered and like you can leverage that to your advantage, for example. But then like both of us just like refresh, recharge, come back. So it was crazy. I do think Pokemon, at least when I play in tournaments, often it does feel like a momentum thing where I like feel the adrenaline building from like each victory or each loss. And I'm like, I hate taking breaks. Like I really want to just keep
Mm.
playing. And so it was kind of wild to just have like 2 hours off. But at the end of the day, it was, I don't know, kind of expected, to be honest. It was like first tournament of the season. And I'm glad that at least it seemed like outside of that, there weren't too many other issues in terms of like the Wi-Fi just completely not working. There were definitely many issues within the game. Like I had one subsequent round where we were in team preview. It took forever for us to connect. We were in team preview. We both lock in. My opponent's game starts. I'm still stuck in team preview at 0 seconds. His game sees my leads. His leads come out. He's like, "Are you in the game?" And I'm like, "No." I don't get to turn one until 2 minutes later. And at that point, the game said, like, you didn't make any moves. So the game is inputting your moves for you. So like turn one just plays out. And I was like, I didn't even get to do anything. And so we then like call a judge over and then we like decide the calls to like reset things. But at
Yeah.
that point, there's like it's not like I don't think my opponent was like malicious and took advantage of this, but theoretically like someone could, right? Where it's like, oh, if you saw your opponent's leads and saw maybe what they have in the back, they could even change up their strategy, for example. And so I'm hoping that's something that gets fixed because it does seem like there were pretty major issues across both this tournament and Turin, where it's like there's like delay lag or like connection lag, and like the way the timer counts down also impacted people. And so at that point, I was like, I think I don't know, 3-3, and so I was like already out of day two contention, so it didn't really matter. But like I'd feel very differently, I think, if this is like at XO or X1 trying to fight for day two against like one of the game's top players. Like I think it would be like even just seeing your opponent's leads while you don't see theirs is like a huge information like advantage, right? And so the game definitely needs some fixing, and I think it seemed like overall things ran honestly maybe a little bit smoother than expected, but there's still a lot that I think needs to get right. And I'm hoping like if this still happens at Worlds, I'm gonna be a little bit nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat. Like I was kind of locked for my Worlds invite before Turin, so I mainly decided to go because it was the first Champions event. Like when I planned out my season, I was hoping that maybe Utrecht was going to be in Champions, but yeah, then it wasn't. So then I didn't go to that one, but decided to do Turin instead. And I just wanted to, yeah, like get a feeling about like what are maybe some of the differences between Scarlet Violet and Champions. And also I also unfortunately experienced some things that like didn't work how they were supposed to. Where like this was an end game where I was like, oh, like I'm pretty lost on board. Like let me like try and like maybe play for the timer. And so I like let the timer like tick down a bit, and I was like checking my your time because I noticed, oh, it's getting like kind of low. But I had like 10 seconds left, and like I spammed in my moves, which probably took like, I don't know, like maybe like 2-3 seconds maximum. But then the turn played out, and then at the end of the turn it said, oh, you lost, like your time ran out. And I was like, excuse me, no, it didn't. Like I had 10 seconds. Like that's in Scarlet and Violet, especially on Switch 2, which made things like very, very smooth. Like I could like input moves like very, very quickly. But yeah, and like I clicked the like save like clip button, but it wasn't part of the 30 seconds clip, and I wasn't gonna like do anything about it like with the judge, because yeah, I was like, the position was lost, so I was like ready to like take the loss, but still, like if that was like a game at Worlds, and if I thought that, oh, I can like take this to timer, um yeah, I would not have been happy with that. And then the other thing that happened to me and my opponent like didn't experience this. Like I asked them after the set, but I was like in a pretty like good position one round. Like I was like pretty happy. I was like, oh, in the back of my mind, like I'm always sometimes like, oh, like the only thing that can go wrong now is like, oh, if the game disconnects or something, and then like the little message shows up on my screen, oh, your internet connection is unstable, and I'm like, oh, uh okay. Can we, like, I hope we can just like continue playing, and with like having in the back of my mind also, of course, what you were just describing, what happened in India, I'm like, oh no, like I hope that, yeah, the game will just continue. So I'm like very careful, like I don't want to touch any cables. I'm like very carefully inputting my moves, and then unfortunately after like 5 minutes or so, the message goes away, and we just like we just play like normally during that, but just having it like show up, I'm like, oh, this is already kind of messing with like my mental, because maybe subconsciously I want to like end the game as quickly as possible, and then maybe that would lead me to make suboptimal moves. So yeah, like that's something to just like, I don't know, maybe this is even something that I would practice or before Worlds, where I'm like, okay, I even if something like this happens, like I don't want to like tilt, or I don't want to like get out of the zone. Like even if like let's say a 1 hour break happens, right? Like how do you spend your time during that time? What do you do?
Yeah.
What do you not do? Like I think this is stuff that I would want to think about before Worlds, just because yeah, like it is the most important tournament of the year, and I wouldn't want to like look back at it and then be like, oh yeah, like something happened that I could have anticipated, but I wasn't like ready for it. And so yeah, this was my main motivation to go to Turin. And so yeah, I think I got some additional data and experiencing it myself. Also, did you hear about the Jamie Boyd against Marco Silva game?
I was just going to bring that up. So our minds are synced right now because it is kind of crazy. I mean, yeah, I like I'll let you describe the situation and then I'll react to it.
Yeah, so I didn't like fully see it, and Jamie said that he has a recording of this because this happened on a side TV, so it didn't happen on the mainstream, unfortunately. Where like maybe the internet situation would have been different on the mainstream. I don't know what the setup is like, but basically what ended up happening is it was like an end game, like a 1v1 with like a Ledge against a Incineroar,
Incineroar. Yeah.
and Incineroar only had a fire type move.
Yep.
Only had Flare Blitz, so it's Flash Fire on the Ledge. So Incineroar cannot really touch the Ledge, but the Ledge doesn't have any more Bitter Blade PP, so it can only go for Shadow Sneak. And it was like with Intimidate and Parting Shot, it's at -6, so it's not doing any damage. Marco just keeps clicking like Protect and Parting Shot to like ensure there's like you cannot like boost or anything. So Jamie is just there clicking Shadow Sneak. Marco is just clicking Protect and Parting Shot, and basically it's like a situation that will go for like a very long time. But Shadow Sneak is doing like 2 HP damage every turn, like 1%. So like it's not even clear if with all the Shadow Sneak that you can use, if it's enough to KO the Incineroar. But we won't get to see it because the game was then decided on time. But at some point, so Marco had more HP but couldn't make any progress because he couldn't damage the Ledge. But he had to spam his moves. So usually Marco would like to take things slow and like just take it to timer. But he had already spent so much time that his your time was like getting like really low, and he had 10 seconds left of your time. And remember my situation, I had 10 seconds left of your time. I got 0 more moves in. He had 10 seconds left of your time. He got in like a good 3 or 4 minutes of time stall with that, because whenever they entered the moves, the game would take like 20-30 seconds to register them and to actually play them out. But these 20-30 seconds, they would count towards the overall game timer. So at some point, even though Marco like didn't really make any progress, only like made like 4 or 5 moves with 10 seconds remaining. He was able to stall out like 5 minutes, and then the game went to timer, and Marco had more HP percentage left on the Incineroar, and so won the game because of that. Yeah, this happening at 9-1. Jamie Boyd needed a top 8 or top 4 for his Worlds invite. And then Jamie also lost the last round against Lewis, I believe. So yeah, went 9-3, didn't top cut. And but yeah, I guess under different circumstances, I guess if the same thing happened in Scarlet and Violet, then Jamie would have won that game. I think that's pretty like safe to say. So yeah, like really unfortunate that happened. And they were also talking to the judges. They had the recording, but the ruling was that yeah, this is like part of the game. This is what the game decided. So the result of the game will stay. And so my takeaway from this is that yeah, just like timer just is not a reliable win condition anymore. Unlike how it was in Scarlet and Violet, where you could like very reliably down to the second, you would know, oh, I have like, I don't know, like 3 seconds left or whatever. I lock in my moves now, everything is gonna go through. But I also had it happen on ranked ladder where I'm like pretty sure I locked in my moves in time, but then the game would show, oh yeah, your moves didn't reach the server in time or something like that. Like it's a different like error message that you sometimes get. And so like yeah, like my takeaway is okay, you cannot like trust the timer, which is not a good thing. But I will like try to just like play for the position rather than for a timer ever. And I also I want to make sure that I lock in my moves with like an extra maybe 5 to 10 seconds buffer. Because I tend to be someone who like locks in at the last second, and I need to work on that. I need to work on that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think this is something that needs to be fixed, in my opinion, because the lack of consistency is the biggest problem with it, right? Like, if you told me, oh, everyone's going to consistently experience this, then it's like, oh, then you can play knowing that it is not a viable win condition. That's not how the game should be, is the problem. Because
Yeah.
a lot of other people, like your case, for example, you didn't even get to make a move, right? And so just to reiterate like the scenario, right? It's like there is 3.5 minutes left in the overall game timer. Marco only has 10 seconds of your time left. So in a world where there is no lag, input delay, or any of this, Marco basically always loses because he is not going to be able to make enough moves, and that he's already taken too much time, right? But the game is just arbitrarily saying, hey, like the connection is taking forever. So like we're just counting down the timer, even though Marco only like he makes his moves immediately, but then the game like still takes like 20, 30 seconds to process, right? So I mean that it's honestly like heartbreaking. I think like this is one of my problems. It happened at Scarlet and Violet as well to me. I was like in day 2 of San Antonio regionals playing Joe UX9, and it's like if either of us win this one and like the 2 following, like we top cut, and it's like game 3 between us, and our game like disconnects 3 different times or something like that, and I don't know what what the deal is, and the game felt like pretty even at the given point. And then we go to sudden death instead. And I was like, I've never played sudden death in Scarlet and Violet. In sudden death, basically, it's like whoever takes the knockout. If you trade knockouts, I think it keeps going. But it's like if you take a knockout and your opponent doesn't get a KO on you that turn, then like you win the game. So we go to sudden death, and I'm like, oh, I've never experienced this scenario already. Like this is not like Pokemon how it's meant to be played, but whatever. It's like in the rules. And so that was already quite infuriating. And then I remember it was actually especially heartbreaking because then basically I like predicted the Terra correctly. He had like King Gambit and I had Chien-Pao, and I was like, he's going to Terra Dragon. So I Icicle Crash into King Gambit. And I get the prediction right. He Terras, and then I miss Icicle Crash. And so it was like the worst way to lose, where it was like DC, DC, DC into game 3 into predict the right move and then lose. But it just makes, I don't know, like these things happen, but I also think about like Emilio Forbes getting knocked out of Worlds in 26 or 2022, 23, where he was like about to win in top 16, but then everyone disconnects because of like a power outage. And then so they make all of those players play sudden death as well. To me though, this is like, there's things that like happen within the venue that like sometimes, it does happen. And like, it's like kind of freak accidents, but like, the game having this like connection issue, I mean, I guess it's tied to the Wi-Fi within the venue, but to me, it's like a fundamental thing they need to fix. Because if I'm Jamie, I'm like devastated by something like that, right? Like that is, and like like one more round to try to make top cut afterwards. But like when you know that you had top cut basically locked right in front of you, the game like snatches it out your hands, and then like to be able to mentally recover from that, like it's just really, really challenging. And so I think it's like a very clear issue that like I know is being documented. So I really hope the developers like really take a good look at this and like fix it, because once again, it's like the lack of a consistent outcome in something like that, like not knowing how the game will actually play out, knowing if your moves are going to be input or like read by the server in time, feels outlandish to me, quite frankly.
Yeah, and then in addition to that, I think also then the judge calls like also need to be consistent around it. Whereas
Yeah.
like in some cases, I know that like some things that the game did, like in your case, um, like you could also say, oh yeah, it's just the game, like it didn't let you choose your move or whatever. But in that case, like it was like the judge made the decision, in my opinion, correct decision to say, oh no, like this is not how it's supposed to be. Like please replay the game. Whereas in this scenario where like the server lagged or whatever, it is like, oh yeah, no, here we actually like won't alter the outcome like from the game. And I know I think in Pokemon Go there is like a reoccurring bug as well, that like the Go casters explained to me like several times, but it has something to do with like I think if you're like it's like instant damage, I don't know, miscalculation. Like imagine you like your move does 0 damage, and it's like very obvious that this is like a bug. But in like Pokemon Go, it's like hard, or it can be hard for an audience to understand it because the game is like much quicker. But the like the pro players, they will notice, and then there is like a thing where if this happens, if this bug happens, then they will like they get to like replay as well. So like there is precedent for yeah, things like this where it's like, oh yeah, like the game maybe has some errors, maybe that cannot be fixed because it's like and well, we'll get crossplay as well between phone and the Switch, which is add another layer of complexity. But yeah, it's like playing on a server across different consoles, like Switch One. What's the mini Switch called? Switch Lite.
Light, I think, yeah.
Lite, yeah, Switch Lite, and like yeah, I keep running into opponents with a Switch Lite, and then it's like okay, like I'm already seeing, like I'm already like playing, and they're like still like sitting there, and I'm like, oh, I don't think they have like they see the board yet. So like this like small kind of like discrepancies between the different systems can lead to like the 10 seconds like this way or that way, and then that has a big influence. So like where do you draw the line basically is what I'm saying, as to like where should the judge interfere and where is it part of the game. I think that's like a very very narrow line, and very very difficult also to make consistent rules around and consistent calls around it. But yeah, it would like I guess for both of us, um what we experience, it's like okay, it's like whatever, like it didn't really matter that much. But yeah, like Jamie's like definitely mattered a lot to like with his position in the leaderboards. And so yeah, that's like really unfortunate way to go out. um so yeah, I really hope that for Worlds we'll have like something like even more stable, hopefully.
Agreed. Yeah, I think your point about the judge one is an interesting one, because I think basically when like we called over the judges, they're like, hey, because there's been a lot of issues, like it should be a reset. But he's like, in the future, like it's your responsibility. And I was like,
What does that mean?
yeah, I was like, what can I do? Like, I can't control whether or not there's lag or not, right? Other than power cycling, turning my Switch off between rounds.
Okay. In that case, I mean, like I'm a big fan of like debate in general. But then in that case, okay, let me purchase my own like mobile hotspot, and I will bring the internet. Like if the tournament infrastructure cannot handle like such like a large amount of people reliably, then I don't know, maybe we'll live in a world where like every player, I don't know, brings their own thing, and then it's decided based on like who is the best provider.
Wait, it's funny you mentioned that, because that actually takes me back to the whole round four fiasco where basically they were like, oh, everyone should clear their cache on their Switch and like in Pokemon Champions. And I was like, okay, whatever. Goodbye, my safe passwords. It's okay.
Yeah.
But then they were like, and then I had to like re-download, some update for Champions or whatever it was. And I couldn't even download the update. And then so they were like, you can't use your hotspot to play, but you can use your hotspot to download the update. So here I am, like using my phone on hotspot to like download the update. But then I'm like back to the exact situation where I started with, just that I cleared my caches and now I don't have any of my saved accounts. So I want to be very clear. I'm not like faulting the judges for any of this. Like they were put in very tricky positions, and you know, like you said, there is a very fine line to draw. It was more just like amusing than anything, and like I think overall they in Indy like they handled things really well because it's like they didn't know that any of this was going to happen, right? But I do think like there will be difficult positions that they will be put in. And ideally, it is on the game to be fixed so that the judges do not have to deal with these positions. Because ideally, the judges are there just to like make things run efficiently, right? And if the game is not like I would say like broken at points, then they won't have to make as many difficult calls. But yeah, all of that is to say, the game is certainly not flawless, and I don't know. Once again, if I like, I really feel for Jamie. Like that is just so unfortunate, especially because he brought like just such a cool team, and you know he's such like a unique player and team builder, and like I don't think he's played a ton this season, and so for him to have been able to qualify for Worlds and for him to have been so close from it after like not playing a ton, I definitely feel for him. So we'll see where things go in the future in terms of like how the game is fundamentally running, especially just. I don't know. As competitors, it's like you're so in the moment that like when these things happen, it just like rips you out from like everything that's going on, and it can be like super disorienting, to be honest. But yeah, all of that is to say, Indy, super interesting tournament overall. I will say, I think like if we talk about like the metagame just for a little bit and like the teams you mentioned, like the top 4 teams, right? Like all kind of had some unique stuff. I want to quickly talk about Arsenal, by the way, because like I got so sad reading people's comments like, oh yeah, he just like took the best Pokemon and like put them on one team. Like, of course, Charizard, Mega Floette, Slop won. And I'm like, dude, like there were so few people running Mega Charizard with Calm-Mind Floette with Sinistcha. And in fact, if you look at everyone who played at Indianapolis Regionals, the only 3 people that ran Calm-Mind, or even not even Calm-Mind, just Floette, Charizard, Sinistcha as a trio, it was literally only Arsenal, Inc., and Sohai, like the team building group, right?
Group,
yeah. Exactly. So like, I think it's really hard to honestly like tease out this nuance for people that maybe don't follow VGC at like a super high level. Like I think like, and I get it, right? It's like you look at the Pokemon, you're like, oh, like it's just the same Pokemon over and over again. I guess like as a competitive player, I'm hardwired to think about like all the nuances that allow you to actually become a champion, right? Not just a top 16, top 32 day 2 player. Like what are the things that allow you to like rise to the top? And then I also see a lot of people are like, yeah, he got so lucky with the sleep powders. And it's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to win a tournament in Pokemon, like you're going to get like, it's like you need to be a good player. You need to have a good team. That's like generally a good call for the event. And you need to not get unlucky, or you will get like, you probably will have sets where it's like, oh, like I might have lost that if I didn't get lucky, right? That's just the nature of Pokemon.
And you need to play well, of course, which he absolutely did. Like, especially in the finals, like just incredible like display of skill against arguably the best player in the world in a finals against a team that he has probably never seen before, against the Mega Steelix. So it's like, yeah, like it cannot be kind of overstated enough, like how impressive the performance was that he displayed.
100%. Yeah. And I mean, I want to talk about the finals because obviously, like Markus and I being friends with Wolf, like we had been involved in like the preparation process throughout Top Cut, right? Talking about like how to potentially approach this finals matchup. And I think Arsenal, like I would say, played perfectly in the finals. Like I remember watching it and I was like, dude, he is like really on another level right now. And I think part of the finals and what made it so interesting is like Wolf bringing Steelix, and Steelix on paper seems really good because there's Mega Floette on the opposing team and Wide Guard is good. But if Floette doesn't come out, suddenly Steelix is this awkward Pokemon where it can't actually hit Mega Charizard for a lot of damage, and it is really slow as well, right? And so like Arsenal goes with this like Garchomp Venusaur lead, which I think is not the most intuitive lead when you look at a composition like that. And he made a lot of amazing calls. Like, for example, turn 1, he goes Dragon Claw into Tyranitar, which switches into Talonflame. It was like a safe play because like there's no resist to Dragon Claw, but so many players I think would click Stomping Tantrum there, and if it's Stomping Tantrum on turn 1,
over
literally, exactly, because then you have Scarf Garchomp out on the field against the Talonflame, and the Talonflame pressures Brave Bird onto Venusaur the next turn, right? But it's like the Dragon Claw alone breaks Scale Wings and like punishes Wolf super heavily. And then in game 2, like he there was this one turn where he or maybe it was game 1 where he basically is like weather balls into Steelix when like expecting Tyranitar to protect because Incineroar is applying fake out pressure, and like hard switches Incineroar out as Tyranitar protects, and so it leaves Charizard vulnerable to like a rock slide, right? But like one of the most incredible things I saw from his play was like every time he had fake out pressure on Incineroar, it felt like he made the right call. Like he clicked fake out when he needed to, but he knew when his opponent was going to protect in front of that fake out and hard switch the Incineroar to regain positioning advantage, right? And so like the way he piloted that team and played in the finals was like honestly flawless. Like it was obviously like, the solar beam play is the one that everyone talks about with what an incredible call for him there as well, right? Like I would have clicked Heat Wave in that position. It's like to like say, look, this is the exact turn I'm going to Mega Evolve and I'm going to Solar Beam a Sinistcha, right? Like takes a lot of guts to do that. And so his play was truly phenomenal. And like, I do think Venusaur was a big piece of it, right? I was watching interviews that he did and like, he was like, look, I think most people would just kind of disrespected Venusaur. Like, and even, as someone who had been playing and following the format, I was like, yeah, I feel like Lumberry Dragonite was the thing in the early days of the format to give Venusaur some more trouble. That's not around anymore. Lumberry in general is not being used. There aren't that many grass types, and Charizard obviously covers for those really well. Dual Wing Beat's not being really used. Aerodactyl use is just trending down. So, like, I think a lot of players probably just like got demolished by Venusaur in the early days of Champions. And so then when they saw it won, they're like, oh yeah, like of course Venusaur won. But it's like usage rate was actually really low going into this tournament. And part of it is because of how the metagame cycles, right? It's like Venusaur usage super high in the first 1 or 2 weeks of the format. Then the metagame develops. Aerodactyl becomes way more popular. Lumberry becomes way more popular. Venusaur usage falls out. Then those things now leave. And so Venusaur now is like, hey, wait, all of a sudden, I think I could come back into the format, right? And one of the things about Venusaur, as Arcel mentioned, I think in one of his interviews that I watched, was that like it can take any matchup and turn it into a 50-50, right? So that's already really scary. You put it under the hands of an amazing player like him, and it becomes even scarier. So yes, obviously he was fortunate to go. I think it was like 6 for 6 on Sleep Powders throughout top 8, like top 4 in finals. But having used the team, like Sleep Powder is one of those moves where it's like if it hits, you often gain such a huge monumental advantage. And because of Venusaur's Focus Sash, even if you miss, like you often are still in the game, right? So it's like the team, I think, allows you to like really, really accelerate in terms of pacing if you're like one step ahead of your opponent. So I just like had to go on my spiel here because I think like I do know, I get it. Like I think people in Pokemon generally want to see like unique Pokemon and unique strategies win. But I like felt a little sad seeing, I think, like people just like, I wouldn't say discrediting Arcel because I think so many people are like, yeah, he played absolutely amazingly. But people are like, oh yeah, like he got super lucky. Like he used all like the, the basics like slop stuff. And I'm like, no, it's not like that, right? Like they made a really great metagame call. And like, once again, no one else was using Calm Mind Floette, Charizard Y plus Sinistcha in that tournament. And so I just wanted to give him his, roses because I like, yeah, I was watching that finals and I was just like, dude, oh my God.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And to add to that, even if he was using the most standard team, like it's still like it doesn't matter because it's about like choosing a team that you believe you can pilot better than anyone else. And if you believe that you're the best player on like a standard composition, like that is also like a really, really hard thing to do, right? Like, yeah, because you're essentially saying, okay, like I can pilot this better. Like everyone knows about this team, but I will be better than like the other 1,000 people at this event. So then, yeah, like if anything, it's like as impressive as like coming up with like a cool like team in the builder, to me at least. Yeah, but then maybe when shifting focus a little bit on the 2 tournaments that happened this past weekend, Japan Nationals and Turin. Yeah, I already talked a little bit about my run. Yeah, I don't want to make it too much about other things that maybe could be improved about the circuit. But yeah, for those of you who didn't see it or didn't follow along, so I ended up advancing into day 2, winning the win-in on stream with this. I was using a Mega Charizard X team and Floette, so dual setup. But unlike the team that Aaron was using in Indy, it also had like a Sneasler that could do like a little bit more damage. So and a Kingambit as well. So it didn't rely solely on like the setup Mega to carry the game. And like the team was really, really strong. I had some help coming up with it, but yeah. So I made it into phase 2 with 6-2, and so my losses were early. I lost round 1 and round 4, I think. Round 1 was like Venusaur. I was guilty as well of what you just described, like not being ready for the Venusaur. I wasn't ready. Sleep Powders hit. My opponent played well, and yeah, so I lost. And then in round 4, like this was the other weakness that I was aware of with the team, which is just like rock slide. Like I don't have a good way of stopping Aerodactyl from just clicking rock slide a couple times. And yeah, well, it did hit. It did flinch me more often than not, unfortunately. And so I also lost that round. So it was like 2-2. I was like, okay, well, like, yeah, like I'll just keep going, take it one at a time. And I managed to win all my remaining games to end the tournament at 10-2. And I'm like, wow, like I'm feeling incredible. Like this is exactly what happened at the last regional I won in 2023, where I also started with 2-2 or 3-2, and then ended up winning like everything from there. And I think I was playing pretty well on day 2 as well, like beating like 3 really strong players. My first time playing against TOT Massot from France, for example, and yeah, winning that one. I think just definitely one of the best players in the world at the moment. So I was like really proud of my play, really proud of how I did in that second day, especially, and then finishing 10-2. And I was like looking at the resistance, and already because the tournament was so big, we kind of knew that there would be some players who would like not make it into top 16, even with that yeah, pretty good record of 10-2. And yeah, then I realized, oh yeah, I think I'm a be one of them. And then to finish in 17th spot exactly, of course, yeah, was heartbreaking, because I felt like, well, with the team and with how I played, like, yeah, there was a chance definitely to go even further. But yeah, because they, for some reason, they changed the structure to make it so that it's capped at 16 and rather than 32, which it was before, I believe. Yeah, it just meant that I was out. Like there was no play-in round, and 10-2, 17th place. Opponent's opponent, like 1% difference, meant that me and 2 other players who also finished 10-2 didn't advance, but then other players did. And so then now, like, you look at the final results, and there's a couple players above me now in the standings that finished 10-3, while I finished 10-2. So it's like I don't know, like a little bit lame. So I really hope that they reconsider that maybe for next season.
Yeah, it is, I think, very disappointing. Like this is like the outcome, mainly because I think if you just did one extra round of Swiss, it solves for it, right? Where
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
yeah, and like, part of the problem is that the way these numbers shake up is often tied to attendance numbers, where basically it's like if you pass, it's like a power of 2, right? So 1,024 then allows you to play that extra round. But for example, Indianapolis regionals was like just under that, and Turin was as well. So as a result, you have this tournament that's a lot larger and is like super close to reaching the next bump. But then because it doesn't reach the bump, you have more players than expected at like that X and 2 record, right? And so, I mean, it's like this was always like one of the fundamental problems with VGC back in the day, where it's like, yeah, like I remember bubbling out of multiple top cuts at regionals at like 7-2. And I don't know, it sucked, but now it's like we're playing even more rounds, right? You went what was it, 8, 9, 10-2?
10-2. Yeah, 10-2. And
Like,
at EOIC, Kimu was 11-2, I believe, and 17th.
Yep, and then Pokeaim, of course, Joey
Yeah.
also went X2 at Indy and then bubbled out. And so, yeah, I do think part of it is just like, this is a thing that affects so few players, but it's like it's like at the end of the day, it is such a big deal if you are someone who like is trying to compete at these and really like make a run for it, right? So yeah, I think to me, it's like the easy fix would be just doing an extra round moving forward. Because yeah, or like extending it to top 32, and it should
Or like
numbers
just like have the
X2
play-in
cut.
round, like X2
Yes.
cut, and then it's 19 people, so we will have 3 play-in games, like 14th versus 19th,
Yep.
and so on. And then you have an even top 16 cut, because yeah, like timing couldn't be the issue, because well, then there like the games go quickly. Usually the later rounds go much quicker than some of the earlier Swiss rounds. We even like we in Europe we play an extra round on the first day, so you go 6-2, and then you still play like the first round of phase 2 on the first day. So already, like they're kind of preloading some of the yeah, like the games. And so then yeah, like from my point of view, there would be time to play this extra round. And I think from a player experience, like also at UIC, I think everyone was pretty upset to see Kimu miss there at 11-2. but now also being directly affected. Like I'm like, fortunately it didn't really matter too much. Like I could have still played, of course, for the title and for the glory and for the the direct invite and or the like trip to Worlds, but it's like, yeah, it's like I'm not like super upset about it, but I wouldn't want this to happen to anyone else. And like I think the other two players, like one of them at least, like didn't have the Worlds invite yet. So then to like go 10-2 and then you're just told, oh yeah, like you weren't, like your performance wasn't good enough, or your opponent's performance wasn't good enough for you to move on. It's just like a little bit disheartening. So yeah, I hope that they will have a look at that. And I think this whole issue comes from the fact that the VG tournament structure is directly tied to the TCG structure. So it's like the same rule book, and it's like the same rule that is applying for both. And even at the tournaments, like they're announcing, like for VG, they're like, oh yeah, anyone with like 16 match points or more will advance to phase 2. It's like, I've never in my life seen anyone in a VG tournament with 16 match points. Like that does not exist because we don't have ties. Well, we do have ties in theory, but like not in practice. And so yeah, it's a little bit of like maybe it's like time to separate the two, just to make it more fair for both.
Exactly. Yeah. And for those that might not know about like the point system, it's like 3 points for a win in TCG. I think 1 point if you tie, 0 points for a loss. And so ties are actually quite frequent in TCG, which means that like to make it to day 2, yeah, if you can have like 1 or 2 ties, wins, and then like 1 loss and still move on. Or I think I've seen ones where like opponents have like didn't lose any, but like mainly just split wins and ties. But yeah, in VG that just doesn't really happen.
And because of that, in TCG, it's like it makes total sense to have some sort of cap. Because in theory, there could be like, in theory, everyone could have the same score. If everyone just tied the entire tournament, you would have like 1,000, or they have even more players, like 2,000 players at the same record. Of course, you cannot play like a top cut with that many people. So it makes sense for them to have some sort of like, okay, like this is whatever arbitrary number we're choosing, just so we can ensure that we get to finish the tournament. But for VG, that's not the case. Like we don't, like it is not possible. Like if we played an extra round, it is like, it's literally like not possible for there to be more than 16 players with the same record as the 8th place, which is how the rule works. Unless, of course, we had ties, which I think throughout the entirety of the Scarlet and Violet season, I've seen 1 tie that was awarded, which wasn't like a full mirror Dondozo, where both players switched into their Dozo Tatsugiri turn 1 of every game, and then couldn't break each other and couldn't make any progress. But other than that, I think every set had a winner, and so with that, I think it would make sense for the VG rules to just disregard ties, or just don't allow them. I don't know, say that, okay, even if it is a tie, we'll have like sudden death, and even if the sudden death is a tie, I don't know, flip a coin. Like I think if you can maybe make it like a tiny bit worse in this edge case of like generating a literal tie and breaking it with flipping a coin, which of course also is not fair, but because it only happens like once in 4 years now, it happened once, I think. I don't know if you're aware of any other ties, but yeah, I think there was one in the London Open in 2022, and then there was another one in the Lille Regionals in 2024. Those are the only 2 ties in competitive Pokemon that I can remember. Oh, and one at Worlds 2013. Yeah, sorry. Going with a history lesson there. But anyway, this is to say that, yeah, it wasn't great, but I'm still happy with the 10-2. But yeah, in the future, also for the sake of everyone else who might experience this, please reconsider and maybe change something about how that is decided.
Totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, both of us played since the good old days, and like I think bubbling was just always one of the worst experiences you could have as a competitor, right? Because like it just felt like it was out of your control, in the sense that it's like, yeah, like to your point, right? You like played a bad matchup or just like get unlucky early on, and then you do everything in your power to win every game afterwards and have the same and it's like often the difference between bubbling and not bubbling is like you have one opponent that just wins one more game, and that would literally be the needle mover between you
Yeah,
being
or that drops out because they don't have anything else to play on for.
yeah.
Like my round one opponent, like they were very strong, but they went 3-3 and then they dropped. Like I'm sure if they I don't know, like if they kept playing, like maybe they would have won another one. And then, but yeah, like that's like what happened in like on another day in another player's kind of tournament that shouldn't determine who gets to advance and who doesn't, in my opinion.
Agreed. Yeah. So we'll see, what changes they make. I feel like this one hopefully should be a relatively easy fix. And so especially with our numbers getting so much larger, really do hope, like, I think it would be a big miss if it's not addressed next season. So we'll have to wait and see. I mean, man, I'm like, at this point, it might happen at NAIC as well if they are just under the limit. I think the
Yeah.
number right now is over. And so they should have that extra round. But if it doesn't end up happening, I think that's going to be, I mean, yeah, it would just suck for another heartbreak scenario to occur. But I mean, I do want to talk about, Markus, your decision to use Mega Charizard X, right? Because it's actually
Yeah.
not a very common Pokemon. And also, Markus, he needs a little gassing up because he's quietly put on like an amazing string of tournaments where it's like top 8 at regionals, top 16 at regionals, now 17th at this event. And so like you've been like in multiple top cuts and had this like really good string of tournaments, even though you haven't been like, I mean, obviously you're like very actively thinking about the game, but it's like from what I can see, it's not like you're like playing tons of Pokemon every day. So first of all, I want to talk about Charizard X, and then just like kind of what the recipe to success has been for this recent run.
Yeah, so Charizard X, this was mainly the idea of my friend Emanuele Briganti, winner of the Frankfurt Regionals at the very start of the season. And yeah, basically, I was working, as I was saying, I was working on this Incineroar, Sinistcha, and Floette team composition. And like I was like scouting kind of like Victory Road tournaments and ladder. And this is how I connected with Inc. And we were discussing about that team. And that's also how I discussed with Emanuele, because he was using a variant in one of the Victory Road tours. And so we were just like exchanging ideas. And I was like, yeah, like I'm still looking for a second Mega. Like I saw there was like Mega Garchomp around, which I used in one of the VR tours. But yeah, I didn't really like, it didn't really do too much for me in that tournament. So I was like ready to let it go. And then I was thinking about Mega Tyranitar. I was thinking about like Mega Charizard Y. But he was like, oh yeah, like Mega Charizard X, like he's like played that in the slot. Yeah, I was just like going through some matchups in my head, and Mega Charizard X also gets to benefit from the support package of the team, like the Incineroar and Sinistcha, like really suited really well. And unlike kind of Floette and unlike some of the other Megas that I considered, Mega Charizard X can also just go on the offense without setting up, just because with Tough Claws and decent attack stat and high base power moves like with Flare Blitz, it can already like do a ton of damage, for example, to like a Sylveon or like a Kingambit. It can just like knock them out in one hit. And you don't even need to rely on the setup. Yeah, and then I like tried it out for a couple of games. We were also thinking about Delphox, which I think maybe in hindsight or going forward, I like for NAIC, like I don't know if anyone listening to this still needs a team, but I would probably recommend Delphox. Like if I was going to NAIC, I would probably bring like Incineroar, Sinistcha, Floette, Delphox +2, like maybe. Like we saw a couple of variants, like Sneasler you can do, Basculegion you can do with either Sash or Scarf, and then White Herb or Sash on the Sneasler. Kingambit also I thought was pretty good, but yeah, something like that is probably what I would use. And yeah, the Charizard X did pretty well. I don't know if there were games that I only won because I had Charizard X, or maybe Delphox or one of the others I was considering also could have won. But yeah, I think it's mainly a Floette team, and then only in some like certain scenarios I need to like if I feel like okay, Floette cannot break through this, and I need a different plan, then Charizard X is usually a pretty strong pick. So yeah, I was pretty happy with the team, and also with my play. Like there were like in day 2, like at some point, like you reach a certain point of the tournament where like everyone's just so good with their teams, like you can't just be like, oh, I'll just like outplay them and I will win. like that. So yeah, I had to get like quite a few calls right, but I managed to get them correct in day 2 especially. And so yeah, felt pretty good. Team felt good, and but yeah, maybe Delphox, yeah, is one thing that I would consider going forward.
Definitely. I thought one interesting point was you talking about like Victory Road and like even playing in it and also following around the results of it. Because I was thinking about like, this was, I played my first tournament in Champions and like the result was like way below expectation. But part of it, I was like, okay, well, then what are the key learnings from it, right? It's like, I've had, obviously it's like not every tournament's going to go well, but this was like pretty far below my bar of like what I would want to do on average at a tournament. And so one of the things I talked about was like getting best of 3 reps. And it's like the metagame obviously is going to evolve and shift a lot, but the way, if you stick to a team and a concept, like getting best of 3 reps against good players can honestly make all the difference. Right? I was talking about how when I played in that one tournament in Mexico in earlier this season, it was like even 5 best of 3 reps against someone that was really good on 5 different team compositions, like gave me a good mental model of like, here are the things that I should generally look for as win conditions versus these compositions. And so I was thinking about this because I think in like 2013, 2014, 2015, when like Smogon and Nugget Bridge were like the premier places for VGC, I was playing in these like tournaments every weekend, honestly. And it was like a huge, like that plus locals, I actually think like really, really assisted in me like being able to learn a lot in a given format and like grow as a player as well. And so it's interesting because I think it's like, I often I think if a team is good enough to like succeed in best of 1, then it makes you think like, oh, so then it's obviously good enough in best of 3. But it's like in best of 3, you need to win 2 games, not just 1. And what I found myself happening in Scarlet and Violet a lot was like, oh, I like am really playing like improv versus my opponent having game plan. So often I would lose game 1 and I'd be like, well, okay, now I figured it out. But it is such an advantage to win game 1, honestly, especially as in a format like this, in my opinion, where the dual mega threat, like being able to like switch between your megas should your team have that, like can unlock just a lot for you. And so when you brought up Victory Road, I was like, yeah, I think if I were playing in, whenever next season starts, like I'm sure I will compete in a couple of tournaments, and it's like I would hope like to carve out the time in order to like be able to play in some of these either best of 3 tournaments or like run some best of 3 sets against my friends and like be very targeted about it. Because I was thinking about events that I had won before and done well in like in the past, and I think like in those events I always was like, okay, against like the top 5 to 10 teams, I know what I'm going to do in terms of leads. I know what I'm going to do in terms of mix-ups, and I know what are the things that could go wrong for me. Whereas I think in this tournament, I was up against just kind of like standard Whimsicott Charizard stuff, and I was like, oh, they have a Hisuian Typhlosion. I haven't seen that before. I have like no idea what to do against it, and obviously part of the skill of Pokemon, it's like it's not just like flow charting and like memorizing everything, right? Like part of the beauty is being able to improv. But I was like, I don't want to go into a tournament where I don't have at least the concrete game plans against like the most standard things down, right? Like it like that to me is kind of like the bare minimum, but you do need to like put in the time and like get the reps in. And so I'm like saying this both for myself and also for the viewer, like people who are listening, because I think it's like to your point, Marcus, like your whole Pokemon career is like, it's like an evolving thing, right? It's not like each tournament is just kind of siloed by itself, even if their own formats. And so there's a lot of things you can learn from it, right? One of my other learnings is like, I think this was a good team, but I think given that like myself, my brother, and Aaron Trailer all like did not do super well with it, and I know we're like solid players, I think it means that like something could have changed in like the preparation process. And we jumped on the team like super late, right? It was like literally 2 days before the event, and I like text Aaron and I was like, yo, dude, I just used this team. I think it's really good. Like I think, yeah, like it's special because I think most people are not going to be prepared for it. But to your point, when we were talking about earlier, like the margins can feel so thin where then it like dangles on a play style method like we probably haven't been used to relative to like other teams that we've used before. And so it's interesting, right? It's like when you reflect on a tournament run, and I think it's like preparation process, team selection, and then play. Like all of those are into like different variables that like you should ask yourself like, am I happy with like each of those boxes, right? And most of the time, I think unless you do like super well in an event, the answer is going to be that there could be some things that change. And sometimes you go 5-3 and you miss out on day 2, even though you felt like all those 3 boxes were checked off, right? Like at Worlds in 24, I actually like thought the team was good. I thought like the preparation was really solid, and I thought my play was like pretty good. And if you rerun the tournament, I think I make day 2 more frequently than not, but I missed out. But that's okay, right? Like it's Worlds. It's such a difficult tournament. But point is, it's like sometimes that will be the case, but a lot of the times there's probably something that could have improved in any of those boxes. And you should ask yourself, like, what are the things that I can do to then basically like, yeah, change that for the future. And then So then it makes me want to come back to you, Markus, because like you've had a really good string of events. Like what's been the secret sauce, you know?
Yeah, one small plug because you mentioned improving. So I was working with Wolf on a kind of like masterclass intro to VGC that covers also some of those topics. So anyone who's listening to this who's interested, this is on Wolf's Patreon, and yeah, I think it's the $10 tier there, and you get access to the 8 videos, 8 video lessons about different topics, but one of them also talks about like how to improve and how to like analyze your games, and gives you like tangible kind of like things that, oh, if you spot this mistake, then you should do X going forward. So yeah, if you're interested in that, check that out. But coming back to your question, because actually a friend of mine also asked me the same thing yesterday. He was like, dude, like your season, like I don't know what you did like this year. Because yeah, I didn't play, like I played 5 tournaments this season, and as you said, in like the 3 most recent regionals, top 8 in Birmingham, top 16 in Orlando, and now 17th in Turin. All of them happening in different formats. And all of them, I think I was like pretty well prepared in going into all of them with like specific game plans and having like a good idea of what I wanted to do in like into certain matchups. I didn't actually play a lot of like practice games with any of the teams, just because like I don't know, like I'm just like focusing my time more on like talking to experienced players on the same archetype. So like I was mentioning the VR run, and I was 5-1, only having lost against like a Saralech team where I'm like, okay, Saralech, I don't know, I might not see that too often. Well, maybe I would have lost against Jamie Boyd if I faced him. But then in the last 2 rounds, I lost back to back against Whimsicott and Charizard Y teams, and I was like, well, that's not supposed to happen. But I lost like pretty badly, and I didn't really know what to do. And so after the tournament, I was like, okay, like I could try and figure this out myself, but maybe like some of my friends who are using the similar archetype, maybe they've already made some progress on this, and maybe they ran into the same problems. So I was like asking around, and yeah, like some of the other players I was talking to, they were like, oh yeah, like this matchup against the Glimora, which was just like trending like pretty highly at the time. Yeah, this is so tough. Like I don't know what to do. And then one of my friends, he was like, oh yeah, I also encountered the same issue, but eventually I found a solution, and he like showed me his like lines and asked me for my opinion, and then we played some practice games. Because at first it was like, oh yeah, like this is like very very thin, where it's like, oh yeah, like they will use this play on turn 2 or something, and then we call it out and hard read it. It's like this is like usually not the type of play that I want to like make. But it turned out there were like multiple options that we could go for, and the more we kind of played and practiced that matchup specifically, I realized that it's actually not as unfavored as I thought initially. And then also it was going down in the metagame. Like it felt like Lemora, I don't know, was like past its kind of peak. And so yeah, then I was like, this was the only matchup that I had like that I immediately struggled with, and then everything else like just felt like pretty playable. But then spending the time to kind of come up with the like, okay, this pick is possible in this matchup, and this one is not possible. It's like small things where it's like, if you're leaning into the Calm Floette mode, for example, very, very often you would bring Incineroar, Floette, and Sinistra in this order. But then the 4th Pokemon, you have to be very, very like deliberate with, because like, yeah, some teams, if they have like a Choice Scarf, Basculegion, like maybe you want to bring your own Kingambit, but even against some teams that have Basculegion, you want Sneasel because you need the double fake out in some scenarios to break through their like initial kind of resistance. And it's just like very very small like things where if you've thought about this before the tournament, then you can go into the games with much more like of a clear plan of what you want to do, rather than, as you said, like just improvising, because you know kind of how the flow of the matchup is supposed to go. And then like I would know for a matchup, I would know like, oh yeah, this one is one where it would very often end up in a like Basculegion end game, and there I need the Kingambit. But then another one would be like, oh yeah, against this one I can actually beat the Sash Basculegion with like Dire Claw and Dazzling Gleam, or like, oh yeah, usually they will need to switch it in at some point. It will take prior damage, and that's why blah blah blah. So yeah, it's like, I think the past couple of tournaments have been some of my like best prep for regionals in a while, like this whole season, because I knew that I didn't have that many opportunities to play. I wanted to make them count, and so I was working with different players that were like kind of on very similar teams like I was, and I think that is something that I did like for the first time now this season, and that was like pretty successful. So yeah, maybe that's something that I will want to continue doing rather than sticking to like one building group. Because then sometimes, like with my like friends that I have built for multiple tournaments, sometimes it's like you're at a point where I want to go that way, but they want to go that way, and then it's like, okay, we can like reason and like talk about it and figure it out, and then come to a common path. But sometimes maybe it's just better to just go separate ways because of like the way you're used to like play, and then finding someone who at this crossroad would take the same path. Maybe it's like more beneficial to work with someone that kind of has the same, like looks at the game in like a similar way. I don't know. Of course, that could also then lead to you having some blind spots in your prep and whatnot. But for the last 3 tournaments, the last 3 teams I built, because EOIC also played the same team from Birmingham. Like that kind of approach was very, very effective, and also allowed me to like make some new friends, talk to some new people that I maybe didn't talk on like such a deep level about teams. I think also there I just got less secretive about, oh, which team am I going to bring, because I would just be like, hey, well, you're like working on the same team, like you don't have any like you don't have any benefits from sharing my secrets, because you would just like hurt your own chances of using like a similar team. So yeah, it's a long story to say, but I definitely would not have had the same level of success without the people that like helped me on all the different teams. So thank you to those of you who were a part of my runs this season.
Super cool to hear. Yeah, I mean, it has been a very inspirational run of events. So I'm obviously very happy for your overall season. Also excited to see, how Worlds is going to shake up, and especially with, I feel like your newfound knowledge and being able to work with different people. I do think that's one of the biggest elements of success in Pokemon for a lot of the top players. Really, all the top players, truthfully. It's like you have people that you can talk strategy with, and you can either build together with or practice against each other. And once again, even just like knowing that you have friends that are really good players that you can run best of 3 sets with is, something that is very valuable. But everyone has to start from somewhere in the community, right? So I hope that those that are listening, if you're new, don't feel overwhelmed being like, well, I'm new, like I don't really have those people, because you can meet those people, right? From talking online, from going to local tournaments, for example. Like, I ended up being friends with people like Aaron and Wolf and Markus, mainly because we were just kind of competing around the same era. It wasn't because like we were necessarily using the same teams or whatnot, and we kind of just got to know each other. And so I think, like having a good support group around you, knowing like, how you can really work best with your friends is a big part of the game, in my opinion. So I think super cool to hear that. And so, as we wrap up, this part, Markus, I just want to hear like any surprises from Turing, because I actually think the teams from it were honestly a lot different than I had expected. Especially, first of all, Marco like winning. I think it's funny because everyone's like, "Oh, Marco come perish," but like he is such a good player, man. Like, oh my gosh, like I thought, if you told me he was gonna win with Mega Gengar against 2 different Mega Delphox teams in top 4 and finals, I would have been like, that's kind of crazy. But he showcased why he's truly one of the best in the world, and always like a consistent favorite to win any tournament he's at, right? Like I thought his level of play was super high. I think Mega Gengar is a really hard Mega Evolution to use, especially in this format, because you do have to get a lot of calls right against things that are threatening with super effective damage, and he consistently did that. And like the way he leveraged Perish against Arash, for example, in the semifinals, where he was like using Perish just to knock out 1 Pokemon rather than ideally to get 2 knockouts, it was like so masterful.
Yeah, it was so kind of exploiting the fact that what we were talking about earlier, this team only has like 1 damage dealer and 3 support. So as soon as the Delphox goes down, the game is just over. And because you could have this like kind of perfect loop of like, you set up Perish Song, then you like go for the fake out, and then you swap out, and then either the Delphox takes a KO, then Mega Gengar comes back in, like sets the trap again. Delphox can't leave, will go down to Perish Song and will faint, or you switch out the Delphox, but then you cannot take any damage in the process. And this was just like such a fascinating kind of problem for Arash to solve, and he like did it really, really well in the second game, where he was able to kind of like get out of that cycle specifically. But yeah, I think that's definitely one of the big surprises coming out from this tournament. Like Mega Gengar, I wrote it off like a little bit. Like, well, I guess if Marco had asked me for advice, I would be like, hey, like just go with it. But like some players that asked me, like, oh, like I really want to make Mega Gengar work, like my advice was just like, yeah, maybe just drop it, because it's like you need to play it at such a high level that like this isn't a skill that you can just like, this isn't a team that you can just like pick up with no prior experience and expect to do well with. Like even someone like Desu, who finished top 16 with Perish, he was saying that he just like picked it up before, but of course he's like a world's level player. And yeah, some of us or some players can do it, but it's like one of the most difficult teams to kind of understand fully, and to, because you need to be precise with every single turn, and you would need to make it count. Yeah, because it's just not bulky enough and can be knocked out. And I was like, well, with Garchomp and King Gambit, it's just too tough to make it work. But yeah, no, he found a way with the dual fighting types, which I thought was pretty clever, to stop King Gambit from making your day miserable. So yeah, very unique team. I don't know what he was doing with the Mega Floette or how often that came out, but yeah, that's like, I would be curious to seeing more games of his. So maybe at NAIC he'll bring it again, and we'll get to see some more of that. But yeah, definitely one of the highlights of the tournament for me. And then I think the other surprise / highlight, I guess I have two more. One is the Delphox teams, like the Delphox setup, like we were just talking about. I feel like Delphox is one of those Pokemon as well that, like, there was like one day on like ranked, like early on, like maybe like the 4th day of Champions Ladder, where everyone was like using Delphox, like the best Japanese players. They were all like streaming, and they were like all streaming with Delphox one day. And then it just disappeared. But now I think it's coming back because of how good of a matchup it has into Charizard. And Louis in his, I think it was top 4 set against Davide, definitely showcased just how precise you need to play, though. And like that's definitely one of my favorite sets as well from the weekend. So definitely also check that out if you haven't seen that already. But just like very like well played by Louis, and definitely also a game to check out. So the Delphox is my second one, and then the third one is the Lycan Rock Mega Villain team. Can you believe it? 9 players used it, and 7 of them made it to day 2. 2 of them made it to top 8. So yeah, I think definitely arguably the most successful single team in this tournament, and it is completely new, like newly introduced into the metagame. Lycan Rock as a counter against Charizard Y, and just has the perfect speed stat it has with Tough Claws and Accelerock. It's just a very like unique kit. We don't have any other like rock type moves that always hit, so that's already a plus. And then close combat for King Gambit, for example, just also very nice additional move. And so yeah, this is my third highlight from the tournament in terms of teams.
Agreed. Yeah, I think, normally if you were analyzing results, I think what's important to look at is basically like, okay, what are the teams that we expected to do well coming into the event, right? The teams from the previous tournaments, the teams that were doing well on ladder, how did those perform, right? From Indianapolis, it was interesting because it felt like Mega Charizard Y, Whimsicott, paired with things like Glamora, King Gambit, Garchomp, Basket Legion, like that was kind of everywhere. And I think the Indy metagame was actually very not friendly towards that, right? We saw, I think, it was like maybe 3 Mega Charizard Y teams in top 16, but the team that won, it was a little bit different, right? It was the Floe, it was the Sinistcha. The ones that were doing super well, especially by Japanese players, didn't feature that. And then coming into this event, it was like I actually thought like Mega Tyranitar usage would be a little bit higher, especially because it did so well. But then yeah, like it was like Mega Gengar and Delphox, which I feel like maybe slipped under the radar a little bit over in Indy. So as a result, like they were kind of underpriced in the metagame relative to maybe how strong they were. Gengar less so, I think, is a very much like a skill Pokemon. Like it's like, to your point, right? Like you're not able, most people are just not going to be able to pick it up and like be able to pilot it, especially to the degree that like Marco did in the finals. And then off, it's like the other question I ask is like, were there any new team compositions that like literally did not exist before the tournament that now really should be respected in the metagame? This Lycanroc team, it was crazy. Like I'm looking at the players that brought it, right? And it's like the records: 12-2, 12-2, 10-3, 10-2, 9-3, 9-3, right? Like, how cool is it for this group of players? I don't know the story behind it, but for them to all come together and be like, cook up something completely new, right? And I mean, we saw it in top 8 where I think Arash literally lost the first game in one turn because the Scovillain was faster than Basculegion, which is not a speed interaction you normally expect. So Scovillain just moves first before Basculegion, overheat KOs Sinistra, and then the Basculegion one-shots the Delphox, and Arash forfeits on the spot. And I was like, can't remember the last time I've seen a game end in literally like 15 seconds like that. So it's a team that I'm with the regulation ending, I assume many of them will maybe consider bringing it to NAIC, and so I don't think we've seen the spreads for it come out yet. But one of the most interesting things I think coming out of this metagame, and it does make me wish we had a little bit more time with MA, because I feel like with each tournament we are seeing some really cool things, right? And like, we used to play metagames for literally 9 whole months. This metagame is only going to be 2 months. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, Charizard, Floette, they're kind of everywhere. But it is cool to kind of continue to see like the rapid, evolving kind of state of it. And it is interesting to see like 2 different Floettes actually take home the title as well, right? Marco was using timid max offense, it looked like, rather than the calm mindset that won the previous tournament. So NAIC, I think, will be a really interesting tournament because there's not that much time between these events and, of course, like the premier event and the last event before Worlds. And so, I don't know. I'm like, I think it's still such an open metagame, honestly. And like, yes, Charizard and Floette are very good, but like a lot of different megas have seen good success this format. And so I'm eager to see what comes out of our final event of the season.
Absolutely. Yeah, just adding to that, to the Lycanroc story, I just want to give like a quick shout out to the Italian group of players that built it and then piloted it. Because yeah, I think while we are of course familiar with a lot of the like big names that like travel around, like play in a lot of these tournaments and do well so consistently, some of the players maybe don't, or maybe they cannot invest that much time and resources into traveling so much and participating in multiple events. And so a lot of these like really, really strong Italian players actually only go to the like Italian event once per year, and then maybe like 1 or 2 more. But yeah, a lot of these players have made a name for themselves in like online tournaments already, but maybe are not known that much to the greater public. So just want to give them a shout out again. And any of those names, like I think if any of these players like played more consistently or more often, they definitely all have a chance of making it to Worlds someday if they decide to play the full circuit. But yeah, just pretty incredible coming up with a team like this. Unique Pokemon. Like it had everything. It had a unique Pokemon. It had like very unique kind of like ways of running common Pokemon. It had like some Pokemon that maybe you would expect on a team like this that weren't there. And so overall just like very, very, very strong. And I can't wait to review all the games that feature this team on stream. Including I think round 2 it was with Jamie Boyd playing against it as well. So still haven't watched that. That's definitely on my list of things to do. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Agreed. Yeah, I think my prediction would have been just like a more standard Charizard team, like winning the event or doing super well. And I actually think we saw a ton of innovation, which was really, really cool. I could tell you if I played in the tournament, I would have been like, oh my gosh, I have not even fought against a Lycanroc this format, let alone Mega Frostlass plus Scoville. I actually think that's one of the interesting things about the metagame, where like Frostlass has actually done really well in both Indy and Turin. And I feel like when I tried Frostlass out, I was just like, oh, it's so bad in a Charizard. Like Charizard is everywhere. Like and like you have such a negative matchup into it, but it's really cool to see how people have approached team building with Frostlass, right? Like Michael Zhang in top 4 of regionals has the
Weather
what was it?
ball.
Yeah, Tyranitar and like the Weather Ball combo, right? That is so cool. And then now we have Lycanroc being used as well. So I think people in Pokemon often think of like individual matchups. How does this one Pokemon fare against like the most common Pokemon? But like why VGC is such a cool game is because it's all about like how the pieces fit together rather than just like individual one-on-one matches, right? And so I have to say though, yeah, like I didn't think Frostlass would be in as many top 8s as it has been, and it's really cool to see people keep pushing on like how to innovate it. And because there's no one right way to run it, right? I feel like every Mega Frostlass team I've seen completely different from each other. One team has Mega Tyranitar, one team has Mega Dragonite, one team has Lycanroc and Mega Scovillain, right? And so it's cool to see. I don't know. I like team building is just so cool in Pokemon when you can like figure out how to push the limits and like really protect a Pokemon from things that otherwise would beat it. And so yeah, all of that is to say, really, really great job by them. And I do want to briefly touch on Japan Nationals.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I don't know if this is intentional, like bringing up the Frostless, but well, there's one more thing that you can use Frostless with to counter a Charizard. Yeah, for those of you who haven't seen the clip yet, this happened at Japan Nationals, which also happened at the same time as Turin on the past weekend. But I think this was in top 16.
Was it against Shoma?
Yeah, or it happened at some point in the tournament.
I think it was top 64. So both players just qualified for Worlds.
Yeah.
So quick recap for Japanese Nationals, right? Like this event is so chaotic. It is like 7 rounds, best of 1, close team sheet, and then it goes to I think a top 32 or top 64, and all of those people 128 people qualified, so top 64 players then qualify for Worlds, right? So you had to win 4 games to qualify, although I think because there a few players didn't participate, like 1 or 2 maybe players with 3 wins managed to sneak in and qualify for Worlds. But basically it's like close team sheet best of 1, then it goes to I think it's close team sheet best of 1 still in Top Cut until you get to like top 8 maybe, and then it's best of 3. So it's like a very unique
yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It's like a crazy tournament structure, right? And there's so many interesting elements of it, but basically it's like, Shoma, the 2015 world champion, and of course he's won Japanese Nationals before. He makes it in, into top 64, qualifies for Worlds, and he plays the person who ends up making it to the finals. And it's like Mega Frostlass plus Archaludon. And it's against Charizard, right? And it's like, oh, everyone protects on turn 1, and then Shoma's like, oh, this is great. Like, I'm gonna win the Weather War now on turn 2. And then so he Megas Charizard, like Frostlass Mega Evolves, Charizard Mega Evolves, so Snow, then Sun. And Shoma's like, oh, I should be in great slot. He goes like Sucker Punch, King Gambit onto Archaludon, and then Heat Wave. And then Frostlass goes for Rain Dance. And so Charizard's Heat Wave barely does any damage, and then Electro Shot just one-shots the Charizard. And that is the beauty of closed team sheet Pokemon that we don't get really in tournaments anymore. Like back in the day, there were so many crazy surprises like this, but it was this really unique team featuring Mega Frostlass, Mega Gengar, so you had a Perish component, and then the Frostlass was able to enable the Archaludon with Rain Dance, which seems completely unintuitive. I didn't even know Frostlass got Rain Dance, to be honest, and that team was this close to becoming Japanese national champion. Like, the finals was also crazy, where basically, like, I think he had gotten Perish Song off, and like it was like 2 Pokemon left on both players' fields, and he had protected. His opponent encores him after he had protected. So if he doesn't roll protect, it's favorable for him because then he can protect the following turn. But the protect 1 in 3 chance happens right after encore, so he's unable. So then the odds of him getting another protect off the following turn are obviously way slimmer. So also crazy finish to the tournament, and so that team was really cool.
Yeah, so in the finals, just to stress this again, he encores his opponent into protect, where his opponent wanted to use protect anyway on the following turn, but he encores it specifically to get the chance to get the double protect so that on the following turn you couldn't protect. It's like, yeah, like coming up with that line and then executing it and then it working out. Of course, there's a little bit of luck involved there, but yeah, Kona winning the tournament, very deserving champion with the standard team that made it into the top 8 5 times. So yeah, I was saying earlier, I was hoping for, or I was thinking that, oh yeah, Japan Nationals with the crazy tournament structure that you just explained, with a best of 1, like that's where we'll see like the craziest teams, and there was like 5 times the same 6 Pokemon, although with a lot of very like unique things. Like we saw some Focus Sash King Gambit, we saw some Ockerberry King Gambit, we saw King Gambit with max special defense. So like really, really small, tiny, like, or like not even small, but like significant differences between the way the Pokemon are trained, or which moves they have, or which items they have. But the same a lot of the same 6 Pokemon in the end. And on the Shoma incident, did you see some of the tweets that came after that? Like, there
No,
was,
but I just saw that it was kind of like a viral moment in
yeah,
Japan Twitter.
yes. If you go to his like Twitter feed right now, like at Shade Vieira,
I'll pull it up.
like there's some fan art of like Charizard in the rain that I thought was pretty cute. And
Wow,
then
this is so good.
if you scroll down even further, like there's one like tweet he quote retweeted where it like someone like posted a photo of like an inflatable Mega Charizard Y in the rain.
Oh my god.
And then he quote retweeted this saying like, "Oh, this is like the photo I least wanted to see right now." And this
Okay,
got
I also
like
want to
over
I want to point out
30,000
it has
likes. Yeah.
5 million views. Like
Yeah.
I this is like a good point to touch on, right? Because I was like back in the day, like VGC tournaments, like we would go to them and then like maybe some people would watch the stream, but like I feel like it wasn't like a big sporting event where people would really be talking about it, right? But now there are these moments that go like ultra viral, obviously often centered around like the game's most well-known players. Like Shoma is like this huge icon, obviously, especially in Japan. And then I was like, when Wolf with this Mega Steelix, like the VOD with Mega Steelix alone had like 600,000 views literally 24 hours after the tournament. And I was like, that is also kind of crazy to think about, And so it is wild to think the reach that the game can have now and in creating some of these moments versus back in the day where even with Showman Wolf, obviously having been competing back in that era, it's like there just weren't that many people either watching or paying attention to it. And so that to me is fascinating itself, but that's a hilarious tweet.
Yeah. So yeah, for you at home, definitely, yeah, check that out. It's worth it. And then now you also know the context behind why Charizard in the rain is now news.
Amazing. Yeah, I do want to briefly touch on this Japan team because it's like what they're calling Big Six, basically. For those of you that follow 2016, and it's Charizard, Floette, Whimsicott, Garchomp, King Gambit, Basculegion. And there's adaptations on how you can run it, right? Roselli Berry is being used on Garchomp. The set that won was 4 attack Garchomp, kind of like the sets that had done really well in ladder. But I think Kona actually posted the team literally earlier today on his YouTube channel as I was watching the stream. And it was like, it wasn't really anything crazy in terms of complexity. Like the spreads were actually a lot simpler than I expected generally across the board, where I was like, oh, he's going to be like super bulky on these days, but it's literally like almost not 252, 252, but like 32, 32, 2 stats on a lot of the Pokemon. And so sometimes it just goes to show like basics can work if you know how to pilot it. But Kono's a really good player. Like they had made a Mega Lopunny team that did like really well earlier in the season. And like I remember like trying it out and featuring it on the channel. I was like, wow, this is a really, cool team. But it's interesting that so many Japanese players kind of just indexed on this as like, these are just the best 6 and we're going to figure out how to use them better than anyone else.
Yeah, and well, we also saw some of it in the Turin Special Championships, but I think their players were swapping in Incineroar.
Yep.
Over well, in different slots, but Davide and Giuseppe both had Incineroar on that composition. One without Floette, the other one without King Gambit. So that's also definitely an option. But yeah, I mean, is it the team to beat now for NAIC? I'm pretty sure like someone like I think Zine also used it to go 7-0 in the first phase of the tournament. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he just like ran it back. Shoma also had it, so I think he's probably also going to run it at NAIC, or maybe they're like, okay, now it's best of 3, like let's like cook something different. But yeah, I think that's definitely like one of the teams to beat for sure.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's like I'm sure people will try to find ways to like, if you have time to cook, right? It's like you probably want to have a positive matchup against this composition, but there's not that much time to cook, right?
Yeah,
like the competition.
And there's also not really like anything like obvious where you're just like, oh yeah, like this Pokemon, or yeah, like this team has a great matchup into it, just because of how flexible it is with the Floette and Charizard just like being really, really like there's only a couple of Pokemon that are good into both. So maybe Cerulege, but then you have the Garchomp, you have Basculegion, King Gambit, like all of them can hit it for super effective. And yeah, then other than that, there aren't that many Pokemon that are positive into both Charizard and Floette. Maybe the Lycanroc, if they're modest, you can get the Rock Slide flinches. I don't know, but yeah, like I'm sure like some players will figure something out, and yeah, like I'm really looking forward to watching that next weekend. Are you going to like cover it in any way?
Yeah, I think I'm actually gonna co-stream it. I was initially gonna go just because I wanted to hang out with people, but I think like I got to see a lot of my friends in Indy already, and I actually had like such a long streak of travel before and after the
Mm.
event, and so I was like, part of the I think struggle with Indy for me was that like all my weekends were like completely booked in the sense that I was like had obligations for all. I mean, all fun things, right? But it's like I one of my takeaways was also like time management is important, and like I was like, oh, if I'm playing so many games of Pokemon during the day, like surely that will carry over. But like preparing for a best of 3 open team sheet tournament is quite different from closed team sheet, and like I think I needed to get more best of 3 reps in specifically. But all that is to say, I was like, oh, like NAIC, like it'd be fun to go, but like I didn't get a spot to compete. I'm not commentating this year. And I actually really like co-streaming. Like I co-streamed a little like EUIC 2 years ago, NAIC then as well. And I think it's like something that is still kind of lacking in the VGC space. And so I'm like excited to just like be able to cover it from home. And yeah, like really, I love commentating. I love talking about Pokemon, obviously. So I think it'll be fun. And hey, if you're around, you're happy, more than happy to have you hop on at any given point.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, I will be out of town for the baptism of our niece, so it's gonna be fun as well. But I'll make sure to tune in maybe, and yeah. So if you want to get Aaron's point of view, then definitely check that out. That's gonna be on Twitch mainly.
I think YouTube actually.
YouTube. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Trying to think the last time I opened my Twitch account.
Okay. Yes.
That's a whole interesting thing about like the streaming ecosystem. I don't like watch
Yeah.
that many live streams, but especially with like having built a brand primarily on YouTube, like I think it's nice for people to have the VOD be like you can view the VOD like
Yes,
immediately
I
afterwards.
agree. It's like the interface is nice, and if your subscribers are mainly on YouTube, then it makes sense to have it there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm excited. I think, part of why have been doing this full time stuff is like exploring different things, right? So it's like still doing this typical road to rank content, but now doing like 10, 20-minute videos as well. And like co-streaming is like one avenue that I wanted to explore. So I'm like, I'm going to take the fact that I didn't get a spot to compete in as like as a good opportunity, and so I think it'll be fun. But yeah, it is crazy. We're going to be wrapping up Regulation MA literally in just a few days. And so our next video, by the time we do it, we'll cover NAIC, we'll cover the results of it and talk about our reflections of the format. But it has went by really quickly. I was thinking like I took my break from my work literally over 2 months ago at this point. And right now it's only scheduled for 3. So I'm like, oh my God, it's like already like 2/3 of the way through. It's like really flown by. But it's been an absolute blast, and I think yeah, I'm just grateful to be able to do this, especially with you, Markus, and just to have so many people playing and watching still. I think it's been really fun. Mobile's coming out as well, so we'll see how that launch goes. You and I talked about how important it could be to get new players in the game. So it feels like we were maybe kind of beta testing this game in the last 2 months, and I'm hoping things will be smooth once that launch comes out. But a lot to look forward to in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, and then it's going to be the Worlds format as well, so that's always drawing extra attention from all the best players. And as we're wrapping up for this episode, I also wanted to give a quick shout out to 2 Japanese legends that qualified for Worlds, Bisho and Juichi. I don't know if you saw that or if those names mean anything to you, but
Bisho for sure, I think. Yeah,
Bisho was a player in like 2014. They were known for their Mega Venusaur team.
Venusaur, yeah.
One of the only players using that to a lot of success. And Yuichi did play Worlds in, I want to say 2016, 2014, maybe 2015 as well. Yeah, and in 2014, they made it through the LCQ with a Mega Charizard, Mega Mawile team, I want to say. Did it have Aerodactyl as well? Maybe it was like Ryosku's team or similar to that. Anyway, very, very strong player. I remember them mostly also for their Mega Kangaskhan play, but they are both back after a 10-year break of playing tournaments, and they both qualified for Worlds. And there were some like really sweet interactions I saw on Twitter where like like they posted like, oh yeah, I made it into like the top 64, so I'm qualified for Worlds, and then like Naoto Mitsubishi, the 2019 world champion, was like, huh, wow, you are here, like, can we please meet? It's like so cool to see that even after so many years, players coming back to the game.
Yeah, 100%. It's funny because I actually follow both of those players, and so when like all the Japanese results were coming out, I was like, oh my goodness! Like I like have them
Yeah.
followed from literally when we were first starting all of this, and they're still around, which is awesome. Uh, Yuichi, I think in particular was funny because one of my friends, Rashawn, was like, "Oh, I think this guy knocked me out of the last chance qualifier. I wonder what he's been up to. He qualified. He's like, oh, he's a bodybuilder now too. Like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
so
Okay.
like
I need to like get that get those updates in, but
no, it's and that I was thinking like seeing a Rosh in top 4 of Turin regionals this last weekend.
yep.
And Ryosuke Kosuge, the Japanese national champion from 2013, that knocked me out of Worlds, and then a Rosh beat in the finals, also qualified for Japanese nationals, although he ended up not qualifying for Worlds, which goes to show how difficult it is to make it through. Like Ryota Otsubo, the 2017 world champion, also qualified for Japanese nationals, but like didn't make it through the qualifying stage. And so Pokemon's a really, really hard game, like
Yeah.
it's, especially in Japan. But I think there's, so many successes to celebrate, but for every success that you see, there's also, of course, failures. And part of it is just like, how do you learn from them and continue to improve on it as kind of in this never ending journey that Markus and I have talked about. But will be exciting to see some old faces come. And I think Kona in particular is a name that I, definitely recognize from Japan. And whoever wins like Japanese nationals is always so good at the game. And it's like, it feels like it's like, if like the odds of them making top cut at Worlds, it's like anyone top cutting Worlds is like, it's like quite challenging, but it feels like the Japanese national champion in that year, it's always like they'd be one of the first people I would point to, just because like to be able to come out of that circuit, even if it's a different format, it's just so challenging. So excited to see what Kona in particular can do at Worlds this year.
Absolutely, yeah. And as the season is ending, kind of with NAIC, or the regular season is ending, for many players, but then of course, for those fortunate enough to have qualified for Worlds, this is where the fun begins of the year. At least for me, it's always like a very special time of the year, where there's like, well, now we have like such a big break because Worlds is quite late and NAIC is quite early, so it's a quite significant break, where there's also going to be a lot of stuff happening in my private life during that time. So let's see how much time I'll have to prepare, but I'm like really excited for what's to come with the mobile release, as you mentioned, with MB coming up, and then Worlds prep. But first, let's have a look at what happens at NAIC. And I'm looking forward to tuning into your co-stream. And let's see. Do you have any hot takes? I mean, I kind of gave my recommendation of the Delphox team. Do you have anything?
Man, I don't know. The format just feels so open still to me. It's I was thinking about this because I have tried out 3 different teams. The last 3 teams I've tried for YouTube, it was like Sajun's team, and then Wolf Steelix team, and then Espathra, Archaludon, Politoed, Rain stuff. And like, I don't know. I think I combined with them probably went like 20 wins and maybe 3 or 4 losses total. So then I got to like top 30, top 40 and champion tier ladder, which is pretty nice. I feel like previous season I was like constantly hovering in and out. I was like, oh, I could probably park here for the end of the season and just, finish in champion tier. But all 3 of them felt really strong, to be honest, right? And it wasn't like, so I like, part of it is like, I do feel like people often think like, oh, the format is solved. And obviously like the Japanese national champion did use a team that looks like it would solve the format, but they were like 1 protect away from losing, right? And how different would the narrative have been if Mega Frostlass with Rain Dance won, right? Or how different would the narrative have been from Indy if Wolf ended up winning the finals, right? I think people often look at like what wins the event and just takes that to be like the clear, like defining narrative from the event. So yeah, I guess my hot take would be that I feel like the format is still really, really wide open, and people have honestly done a phenomenal job with team building so far. I think, especially for the live events, I like, one of my hypotheses was that like the reason why Sand did really well in Indy, and it was because I think a lot of people were just ripping like Charizard Y Sun teams, because there were a lot more rentals for those. But like, if there are actually very few public rentals for the best Sand teams, and like Joe UX9 is like one of the premier Sand players I could think of, and like, I don't think he ever like published his team publicly, right? And so part of it is like Pokemon is a really difficult game. So like building a really good team is difficult. So naturally people obviously gravitate towards the teams that are like public and already really proven. But as a result, I think it still means like plenty of opportunity. And like we've only had this format for less than 2 months, right? So like I don't believe that it's solved by any means. And like we'll see how like the best kind of Charizard Y teams fare, right? Because I do think Charizard is a really good Pokemon, but it's like the way that people are using it is still really evolving. But overall, I just feel like there's so many viable Mega Evolutions and viable teams out there. And so curious to see kind of what lands on top. But to me, it's like it still feels so open as a metagame.
Okay, I'm ready to make 2 predictions. Number 1, I think Shohei Kimura, Zine, will be in the top 8. And then I say there's one Lycanroc in the top 16 as well.
Ooh, okay. I like it.
But not by an Italian player.
I feel kind of sad actually if it were to. I feel like Italy deserves that one. You know, they were the ones that pioneered it to success. So we'll have to see. But yeah, it's going to be an amazing event to watch, and Markus and I definitely going to be excited to cover it. But yeah, I think this might be our longest episode yet. So as always, thank you so much for listening to us yap. A huge congratulations to Markus for another phenomenal run. I know, I speak for everyone listening, but I personally am so excited to watch you compete at Worlds. Really every year, but this year in particular, I feel like you've really been in your element. Locked in, figuring out new ways to level up, even after playing for so many years. So it's going to be an incredible event to follow. But yeah, next time you hear from us, we'll be discussing NAIC. We'll be talking about the next regulation, our early thoughts, and I think the next regulation is going to introduce a lot of new things, right? We have no idea what Pokemon are being added, what items are going to be added, but I know for me personally, like I'm so excited to like grind and make content for it, especially in the opening weeks, and to have 2 months between NAIC and Worlds and have no tournaments in between is going to make it a fascinating metagame as well. So yeah, thank you so much as always for watching. And yeah, any final words, Markus?
No. Enjoy Pokemon, enjoy NAIC, and see you soon for some more VGC Reflections.
Thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.